In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the new moon in Pisces occurring on February the 20th at 7:06 a.m. GMT at 1 degree 22 minutes of Pisces. I'm going to be talking about some of the energies and themes that are present in this lunation, as well as the aspects and how to work with them. So do get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So some of you may know that I've been creating new and full moon forecasts for Patreon, and I've been sharing some of this information on my Instagram, and I've also been creating new and full moon custom tarot spreads to go with each lunation, and I create a full written forecast for each lunation with the aspects, how to work with them, how they may be presenting within our lives, depending on which house the relevant sign occupies for you in your natal birth chart. My forecasts also go into shadow work that you can practice, as well as ritual and practice ideas and suggestions, and herbs and crystals that you can work with as well. And you also get a downloadable PDF of the tarot spread. So that is still available on my Patreon at the moment, and I've decided to start doing videos to go with these as well, because I really enjoy putting these forecasts together. I really love working with the moon, and especially looking at how, as the moon moves through the zodiac signs, the new and full moons are so different from one another, and even more so when you look at the different aspects that occur. So I'm really passionate about this, and it's an absolute love for me. So that's what this is all about. I really hope that you enjoy. So let's just get right on in to discussing the Pisces new moon. So before I start, I just want to say that I do have a bit of a sore throat and a cold, so if I sound in any way strange, that's what it is. So this Pisces new moon has a stillness and a surrender to it. It's calm, reflective and poised. And there's something of an apathy with this energy too, a kind of quiet confidence. And part of this may be due to Saturn combust the sun. It's obscured from view and its influence is therefore limited. So there's an energy of ease, release, and a very Phoebe-like floopiness to this lunation. This reflects the energy of Pisces so beautifully, and there's also the Venus Neptune conjunction in Pisces, which we will come to discuss later. So the new moon in Pisces occurs on Monday, February the 20th at 7:06 a.m. GMT at 1 degree 22 minutes of Pisces. It's worth noting that in Pacific Standard Time, the new moon does occur on February the 19th at about 11:06 p.m. So some energies and themes that we can discuss here. Notably, there are a number of planets at the anaretic 29th degree, or very close to it, and the 29th degree of the zodiacal signs that they are currently travelling through. So Venus is at 29 degrees of Pisces, Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn, and Saturn is at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So this is highlighting this energy of culmination points and completions. This energy is emphasized even more so as we enter into Pisces season, which is the final sign of the zodiac, and a sign that encapsulates all of, and also simultaneously something unique apart from all of the signs which came before it. I see Pisces as a sign of complex simplicity, nuance, and paradox. It's fluid, it flows through life without much effort. It's a lot like water, of course, as a water sign. And I think it reminds me a little bit of the energy of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party in Alice in Wonderland. And Pisces, of course, evokes a dreamy, otherworldly essence, which is inherent in Lewis Carroll's classic tale, Alice in Wonderland. Saturn is due to ingress into Pisces on the 8th of March, and Pluto will move into Aquarius on the 23rd of March. And as these are outer planets, when these celestial bodies move from one zodiacal sign to another, there's more of an energy of collective change rather than personal, although we may see this reflected in our lives, but this change will happen over a period of time and won't feel like a sudden change in the collective. So we may see more personal changes when planets like Venus ingress into another sign, because these are the inner planets and therefore more personal. Saturn has a 29-year orbit, whereas Pluto's orbit is 248 years. And this makes this shift a once in a lifetime, if that, experience. This is also the fourth consecutive new moon we've experienced in a row at 1 degree, which also emphasizes the compelling energies of new beginnings and forward momentum. So these unfolding energies continue to feel like the closing of a chapter and the ushering in of a new era, so to speak. So despite these upcoming shifts, the Pisces new moon has a quietness to it. It's calm, reflective, and poised. It's how I imagine the stillest, calmest lake to look on a clear night, or I'm picturing an enlightened and unflappable yogi or a spiritual teacher who is centered, grounded, still, and in a place of neutrality. And I feel there's something of an apathy with this energy too, perhaps not in a negative sense, but more of a kind of quiet confidence. And there is an energy of ease, live and let live, release, and an oh well vibe to it. And this actually reflects the energy of Pisces really beautifully. And of course, there's the Venus-Neptune conjunction in Pisces as well. I have also been receiving this very lethargic, dreamy energy from the divine, almost like an allowing for space to just be, to breathe. And where I'm normally the kind of person who needs to tick everything off on the list, or it's a failure, not that in any way I'm advocating this mindset. Rather, this energy has me feeling a more relaxed way, where I can actually imagine myself not getting things ticked off that I always make myself get done. There's a, well, if it's done, that's great, and if not, there's tomorrow kind of vibe to it, which I quite like. It may have something to do, I feel, with Saturn's position at 28 degrees of Aquarius. It's following the Cazimi in the heart of the sun, which occurred on the 16th of February. And currently Saturn is under the beams of the sun and combust the sun, as it's only 2 degrees apart, with the sun at 1 degree and 22 seconds of Pisces. So it feels as if our usually strict and parentally dominant Saturn is unable to be seen at this time. When a planet is beneath the beams of the sun, it's within 17 degrees and it's more or less obscured. A planet is considered combust when it's within 10 degrees of the sun, and this can be a confusing and somewhat challenging time for those planets. A Cazimi occurs when the planet is within 0 degrees and 17 minutes of the sun. This is like a planet enjoying a private audience with a superstar or royalty. The planets each receive differing wisdom from the sun. So with the Saturn Cazimi, it's almost as if the teacher becomes the student once again. After 29 years of Saturn's orbit, it's learnt a lot, and yet there is more levelling up to do. So during the Saturn Cazimi, the sun can show Saturn where more work is required and where responsibility and ownership needs to be taken. So think back to Thursday, the 16th of February at 16:48 p.m. GMT. This is when the Cazimi occurred, and when you may have received some awareness of a ray of light or innate wisdom come to the fore at this time. This Saturn Cazimi occurred at 27 degrees 44 minutes of Aquarius. So now Saturn is at 28 degrees, as we've said, and once again combust the sun. Saturn is rendered less powerful, which may or may not be a concern depending upon the area of life this aspect is showing up for any one personal chart. To check this, you can generate your natal chart using whole sign astrology with free online software at astroseek.com or astro.com, and check to see which whole sign house the zodiacal sign of Aquarius occupies for you in your natal birth chart. So whilst I'm receiving a very lax vibe from this energy, some may feel the frustration from Saturn's lack of power and control, especially if intervention is required in any way. I would imagine that in most cases, a release of the feeling of pressure and overwhelm to perform and to be on duty, as it were, with regards to this aspect is probably a good thing and will afford many a much required break and rest. Almost like potential challenges might arise and get solved without you even being aware of them. Either way, an approach of ease, release, and acceptance is required in order to stay calm, stable, and poised to move ahead, to make changes, or intervene once Saturn emerges once again from beneath the sun's rays. On March 8th, Saturn will be at 0 degrees of Pisces and the sun will be approximately 17 degrees ahead. Therefore, Saturn will be visible in the sky once again. So aim to cultivate a mindset of ease, flow, and allowance, and to release any resistance to that feeling of being unable to steer the ship. It denotes a lack of control, so the key is to embrace the energy and enjoy it rather than to push up against it. Now is the time to let those small things go and focus on rest and stillness ahead of the start of Aries season. So Saturn has an obscured view and can't be seen by the other planets, whether or not Saturn is clamouring to be seen or kicking back on a sun lounger with a cocktail in hand. I just couldn't resist a little bit of Cazimi humour. All the while, our personal luminary, the moon, moves forward in Pisces, relishing the dreamy romance and enchantment of Pisces. It's an especially luxurious temple of pleasures and joy right now, with Venus exalted and Neptune conjunct, as Venus is at 29 degrees, 55 minutes, and Neptune is at 24 degrees of Pisces. The moon doesn't have a particular dignity in Pisces, however, as it is a watery, receptive, sensitive, emotional, personal, and intuitive luminary, Pisces is a naturally comfortable place for the moon to reside. If anything, the watery depths of Pisces may be too emotionally overwhelming for the moon, which is why some may find themselves tearful at this new moon. So just allow space and compassion for yourself if that happens. The moon in Pisces is a beautiful time to rest, to sleep, to get enchanted by fantasy, mysticism, and imagination. It can be a time of deep and profound healing, compassion, emotional vulnerability, reciprocity, and connection. The archetype of Pisces is an empath by nature, and the wateriness of the moon can easily become overconsumed by water and emotion. If your natal moon is in a water sign, a new moon in Pisces may bring more emotion to the surface or heighten your empathic abilities. The concept of the empath is discussed frequently in spiritual communities and often thought of as a challenge. It is true that empaths by nature may become overwhelmed by emotions that are not their own. However, being a true empath is a gift. Learning to hone and be responsible for your skills as an empath is crucial to becoming more aligned and healed for yourself, but also so you can employ your spiritual gifts as a tool to facilitate and support the healing for others. Being an empath shouldn't be considered to be a gateway for an ego trip either. It's not at all that. If you choose to, you can completely ignore your empathic gifts. However, you may at times find it sneaks up on you, and this is what I found for years and years and years during my teens and my early 20s. So if you choose to cultivate and nurture your innate empathic gifts and intuition, you must also be responsible for applying your gift responsibly and ethically, and remember that you are not the all-powerful healer. It's more that if you choose to do the work, as you do so, you slowly start to evolve and heal those parts of yourself so that you can more effectively hold space for others and be a channel for healing, love, and compassion to come through and support another with their own healing. By healing yourself, you in turn enable others to heal themselves. And by shining your light, you indirectly show others that it's safe to shine their light and to be seen as well. Individuals with their natal moon in Pisces are often empathic, intuitive, psychic, artistic, creative, dreamy, romantic, wistful, whimsical, magical, sensitive, emotional, compassionate, spiritual, go with the flow, malleable, receptive, and free-spirited. The expression of the moon in Pisces archetype in shadow may present as too impressionable, a pushover, easily manipulated, vulnerable, the martyr, deceptive, delusional, escapist, or nihilistic. I will just make a disclaimer here that, of course, mental conditions are considered medical issues and they may occur to any individual with any planet in any sign. And I would also like to add that any mental health conditions or concerns should be discussed with a medical practitioner. No spiritual tool is a replacement for medical treatment. Any spiritual healing modalities may be considered as an additional practice to support an individual after the advice of a medical practitioner has been sought and taken, and with the approval of said medical practitioner or another medical practitioner. So, as I mentioned, the planets may not always reflect a mental health condition. However, with an abundance of water, the moon in Pisces in shadow may indicate a tendency towards addiction, substance abuse, or alcoholism. Pisces is the mutable receptive, feminine by duality, which does not indicate that it is anything to do with sex. It's just duality, so I prefer receptive. Water sign. It's symbolized by the fish. Its ancient ruler is Jupiter and its modern ruler is Neptune. Pisces is a visionary, dreamy, poetic, intuitive, sensitive, emotional, reflective, artistic, and spiritual sign. Pisces is all about unconditional love, forgiveness, compassion, harmony, oneness, and healing. Like its opposing sign, Virgo, Pisces is also a sign of service for others, but rather than offering practical support, Pisces holds safe space for emotional release. This new moon may be asking you to hold this space for yourself. So this is a beautiful new moon for surrendering to deep rest, relaxation, self-care practices, and for going inwards, connecting to our intuition, the dream space, and trusting our higher selves. Pisces is about surrendering to what is unknown, trusting in source or the divine, and the health and well-being of our inner selves. This is a really delicious, spacious new moon, a sacred pause, just stillness, solitude, darkness, and silence. I've never experienced this myself, but I'm getting an image of a flotation tank experience. I've been told the feeling of watery, weightless floating in complete darkness is extremely poignant, spiritual, and surreal, with an otherworldly, limitless feeling to it. I feel these images and words perfectly reflect the sense of falling backwards and surrendering to that which we can't control. All that which we discussed previously relating to Saturn combust the sun right now. So some shadow work that you can engage with. I feel that this is literally the shadow work of the lunation. It's a sacred invitation to let go of the chores, the obligations, the self-imposed restrictions, the drive, compulsions to perform like a machine. You're not a Duracell bunny. This is the message I got. The moon is sinking into a deep ocean of fantasy, indulgence, hedonism, and romance, and Saturn must allow it. The sun wills it to be so, just as a child must leave home and make their own life, and the parent must watch them make mistake after mistake after mistake. I am reminded of a beautiful trip that I took with my parents to Amsterdam, a place I feel is like a soul home for me. And I was about 17. We were visiting my older sister who had moved out to Amsterdam for a couple of years with a friend for work. She was a solicitor in London at the time. So we visited galleries and museums. It was all very Venus in Pisces. We ate incredible food and drank delicious wine. And it was at an Indonesian restaurant that my parents both suddenly, seemingly out of the blue, revealed to me their experiences with and encouraged me to definitely try it whilst I was young. I just felt like I'd suddenly teleported to another dimension, to be honest. My responsible, respectable Saturnian parents nudging me to have more fun with psychoactive drugs. It was very Venus, conjunct Neptune in Pisces, in my opinion. Some may consider that kind of advice to be dangerous, but my parents knew their daughter, let's just say that, and it was a safe risk to make. In retrospect, I'm actually incredibly grateful for that moment because I do believe I began to see them more as fallible human beings at that point and less as the perfect example of what a parent should be. Sometimes being a good parent looks different to how one might imagine. Being a good parent is giving a child all the information and the truth so that they can choose for themselves how they would like to live and the choices they would like to make. This new moon invites us to send Saturn on a mini break in the sun so the moon can luxuriate, rest, indulge, and do what it needs to do for deep emotional and soul nourishment. When you really boil it down, the obligations that you simply must get done, obviously not referring to the school run or caring for your kids or any dependents, but those to-dos that you have to achieve, those responsibilities piled on top of you by yourself or others, those self-imposed deadlines, the rigid rules for living, limitations, boxes to tick, labels stuck all over you. What are any of them really worth? If you really want to do something cerebral for your shadow work at this time, take some paper and write out those obligations, the to-dos, the responsibilities, everything. Cross out anything that is vital for caring for yourself or any dependents, or just erase them, and then look at the rest. So write out the reasons that each one is on the list. Perhaps some of them are work-related and could be delegated. Perhaps you can look honestly at them and understand that it's not realistic to get all of them done in the time frame given. Honour your time and well-being and speak to your boss about this if it's work-related, or if you're the boss, have a talk to yourself. If some of these obligations are for other areas in your life, can you break them down into categories and look at how much time realistically it would take to achieve each one? If organisation is a goal, for instance, setting aside 10 or 20 minutes every few days to organise one drawer, one cupboard at a time, might be a more realistic way to tackle a big project without exhausting and overwhelming yourself. That way you can kind of chip away at it. In my experience, most activities take longer to complete than I imagine they will, so always overestimate the time required or allow yourself a buffer. Have a human clause, a kind of soul contract with yourself, which says that above all, your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being, and that of your loved ones, take priority over everything. And you always have this if you reach a point where you need to stop and allow yourself time and space to rest. It's not a get-out clause, but what it is, it's a clause that says, no, this was an agreement with myself. I'm going to honour and respect this, and that's what it is. Another point to consider is what mental and emotional ties do you have to any of the to-dos you listed? If you read each one out loud, do any of them make you cringe, twitch, feel tense, stressed, overwhelmed, or anxious? Start with these ones, not actually getting them done, but looking at why you have this physical, mental, and emotional response to thinking about them. What is your response to considering them, and why is that? So keep probing and asking yourself why and how, and if any memories or experiences resurface, write them down. Shadow work your attachments to any of the to-dos and work through these before you put pressure on yourself to achieve any of them. This is deep spiritual and emotional shadow work. Although it might be related to the mundane, the everyday, if you're having strong reactions or responses to these when they come up, if you're avoiding any of them, that's for a reason. So this really is deep work. It's intense, and only engage with it if you feel safe and comfortable at this time to do so. And don't feel pressure to do this kind of shadow work right now if it's not the right time. Just an awareness of this is enough right now. And that's the divine whisper. I feel like that is the medicine of this new moon, just to listen to these divine messages and the inner soul whisperings. The point is to take the pedal off the gas, release the pressure, and to be still. And to be honest with you, the shadow work downloads are all medicine for me too. But I'm not going to be engaging actively in probing and excavating answers to these questions during this full moon for myself. Just the awareness and reflection is enough for me. It's definitely work to do in the future as Aries season approaches. So right now, I intend to surrender into the fortuitous, abundant, and dreamy seascape of this Piscean new moon. The work right now is about the compassion for ourselves as we rest, to allow our bodies and minds to switch off and surrender, to detach, to have faith and trust in the divine, to flow with the creative impulses, and to follow the thread of dreams and intuition where they lead. All the dreamy energy aside, new moons typically do possess an energy of new beginnings, regeneration, and a re-energizing of an area of your life. And where does new life begin? In the darkness of the womb, the damp, cool soil of the earth. And that's where we currently are. So imagine yourself as a germinating seed, just sprouting forth into the soil, stretching your shoots upwards towards the light of the surface of the earth. Or if the hibernation metaphor works for you, see yourself as a hibernating creature, conserving your energy as you ready yourself for a new cycle of life to begin. In the Northern Hemisphere, most animals emerge from hibernation between March and May, depending upon the temperatures. So we are still a while away from needing to do this. And this new moon is giving you all the indications you need to rest and remain in your cozy, safe nest for now until it's time to re-emerge. Just remember that Gregorian New Year is a social human construct, and it's not natural. It is put upon us as a sales tactic, really, to sell gym subscriptions and all the things that you need in order to be productive for a new year, because God forbid we have any time to actually rest. But really, we are in the deep listening, the deep rest, and that surrender right now. So new moons are an auspicious time to set intentions and sow seeds for the lunar cycle ahead, as well as the 6-month cycle until full moon is in the same sign. So you might wish to consider what themes you were pondering or wrapping up at the previous full moon in Pisces during Virgo season in September 2022. And consider how you'd like to feel at the full moon in Pisces in 6 months from now, 2023. You can find out which area of your life will be most affected by looking at your birth chart and determining which house 1 to 2 degrees of Pisces occupies for you. This is whole sign astrology. It's likely to impact those with planets or points in mutable signs most notably. You may wish to look at the house that Aries occupies in your chart also, as this is where the Pisces ruler Jupiter is. You may also wish to look at the house that Gemini occupies, where Mars is. Aquarius is where Saturn and Mercury currently reside, and Taurus is where Uranus is making a square to Mercury in Aquarius. There are so many ways that these energies can manifest for us in our lives. Again, looking at which houses the impacted signs occupy in your birth chart will tell you a lot about the areas that are supported or implicated during this lunation. I am going into further depth about the aspects for this lunation, including the Venus-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, in my full forecast on Patreon. So you can click over to read the full forecast, which includes the planetary aspects and how to work with them, as well as some rituals and practices to engage with, plus herbs and crystals that you can work with during this lunation to support your work. I hope that this video has been enlightening and supportive for you and your journey. And if you enjoyed it, please do click the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. And also click that little notification bell to receive notifications when I create videos just like this and other witchcraft and tarot content. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I also have a Patreon where you can access the full written forecasts for the new and full moon. These forecasts also include further practices and suggestions for rituals and shadow work, as well as herbs and crystals that you can use in your practice for this lunation. I also include the tarot spread for the particular lunation, and that is bespoke to the moment. So on Patreon you can download a PDF of that, and the graphic is also available on my Instagram. If you wanted to look at the spread prompts there, you can do that. So do click over to Patreon and join us there if you would like more content like this. I also create some custom Book of Shadows pages with rituals and recipes that I've included on the channel, so those are occasional as well. So do come over to support the Patreon. I'd love to see you there. There's also a Discord server, which is really lovely as well. And follow me over on Instagram as well, where I share quite frequently what I'm up to, what I'm reading, what I'm working on, etc. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this video and it serves you. If you made it to the end of the video, please leave me a little moon emoji. Do take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Many blessings. Bye.